I'm super excited. I am here today with the amazing Jamie Taylor. My name's Andy, if you don't know already. You may have seen a little bit about my little rants on Instagram about trying to give the OGs and scrippers and other wonderful peoples a platform to speak from so that we can be a little bit more enriched in knowledge from some people that still exist, believe it or not, that made waves and did some amazing things in years before ours and during ours, in order to be able to give us the gift of pole in the space that we are able to do it in the space that we're able to share it in. And I wanted to try and give some wonderful people like Ms. Jamie Taylor the opportunity to say from her own mouth the kind of things that occurred, some funny things that we might remember, and just in general to give you a little slice of pole life from the way back whens. So please, Jamie, will you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you?
I'm from Pembrokeshire in Wales, and it's gorgeous here, so I'm really lucky to be here. I started teaching pole in '06, but I started poling in '04. I used to compete. I won 2011 All Wales Pole Dance Championship. I used to tour, I used to judge. I've done the circuit. I've been there, done that. So, and then I stopped a long time ago.
Oh, you've been around. You've been in the nicest possible way. I love that. So what was your first encounter with pole? Did you like see it somewhere and get hypnotized by it? How did you come by it?
My first real life encounter with pole was a sit down audition at a club.
Sit down audition?
Yeah, they used to interview you first before your working audition. I don't know if they still do that or if they just let you go in. But I had to pop in for an interview, and then they check you out, and then you have your working audition, and then they check you out and follow you around, just maybe see if you didn't cry when you lap danced or something.
Follow you around. That's so funny. I mean, I suppose it probably varies from place to place. When I went for my audition, they like basically left me unattended, and I very much did not feel like I should be unattended. So you had a sit down. You had a sit down interview first. Well, what kind of things did they ask you then?
I really can't remember.
What could possibly be relevant? Are you okay getting nude?
That was definite. Well, I remember that slightly being a part of it, not like phrased like that, but it definitely came up. But it wasn't like a really big deal. There was just like tick boxing. It would be this, and then it'll be that, and then it'll be this. And I was like, yeah. And I remember looking around a lot, and I wasn't concentrating because I was just mesmerized with everything. There was just like topless women over there and nude women over there, and I didn't even know this was allowed. I thought I'd gone to heaven. I thought, I love this. This is amazing.
Yes, I was similar when I first went to the club for my audition. I think in my head I thought it was going to be like Moulin Rouge, and like people would have their designated like jobs that they would be doing, and yeah, completely mesmerized. I can totally relate to that. But what kind of questions do you think would be appropriate? Like, how fast are your reactions if you need to bat someone away, or what's your level of alcohol tolerance? I don't know, things that would be more relevant probably than the things that they did ask you.
There probably wasn't anything actually relevant. They would just want to make sure that I knew where I was and that
you weren't being coerced.
Yeah. Well, rather that you know that you're in a strip club, have you ever been I'm assuming it was like, have you ever been to it before? Do you know what's involved? Like, do you know what you're getting yourself into? Because this was a long time ago, I'm pretty sure. Because when I started teaching in '06, and then for a long time afterwards, nobody I taught had ever been to a club. Now that's unheard of. Most of my students have been either they're on their own or somebody's walked in to start beginners and they would have visited. But when I was stripping, nobody would have gone to a club. So I can understand if they wanted to check, you know what goes on here, right?
Absolutely. But I was that person because I'd never known anyone who'd ever been to a strip club before, because had I have known, then, well, I don't think it would have changed my actions, but I had never known anyone who had been to a club either. And it's the same, like when I first started teaching, it was like, you didn't tell people, but we'll talk about that more later anyway, won't we? So you just decided to rock up at this club and do an audition, but there must have been something that happened beforehand to make you think of the idea of it. What was that thing?
Yeah. It was a documentary called Strippers USA.
Ooh.
And it was on the TV in the late 90s. I saw it, and I was living in the middle of nowhere then. I was living on and working on stables, and there was like a mile-long drive before our mile-long drive, and those drives came from a village that you had to spend half an hour to get to. I could not get to a club, and I wasn't driving then. So I saw this documentary, and I didn't know that pole dancing was a thing before that documentary. Like, I knew stripping was a thing.
Hmm.
I knew other things like that was a thing. I've never seen a pole before. So I taped that documentary. I knew it was going to be on, and I knew I was going to like it. So I taped it, and I think I watched it every single day for years.
You
And then
taped it on a VHS, just to be clear.
yeah, on a VHS. Oh God, I'm that old. Yeah, I've got the link I found it online, and last time I checked the link about a year ago, it still works. So if it still works, I'll send it to you.
Yes, that would be great to add into the description because oh my goodness, I would really love to see that.
Oh, it was such a good documentary. It followed about 5 different dancers around. They all had different experiences. One was a feature dancer, one worked in this kind of club, one worked in a gigantic club. I thought it was the best thing ever. It was amazing. And then I finally moved house to where I am now, actually. And the train station is just down the road. And I was in this house less than 6 months before I went, I'm near to a train station. I can go to a club. So I looked up where it was, and the nearest club was 3 hours away, but it's better than
Wow.
it was before. So, yeah.
And did you go to the club first before you did your audition, or did you just go to the club and go for your audition?
From what I remember, I think I rang them up and then
Yeah.
went in for my audition. That's what I remember. I can't remember visiting it before, but I did have 2 friends come with me
Yeah?
for the working audition. Yeah, because I knew it was a club, so I thought, bring friends.
Right, sure.
Yeah, and I knew I wouldn't be working that night because they told me. So
Yeah.
yeah,
And
so I
how was your first night? Do you remember your first night
yeah.
working?
I do. So in the talkie audition, the sitting down audition, I clocked a dancer who was wearing all in white, like those gorgeous stripper dresses that is all cut out, and there was barely anything up here, big gaps. You had
Yeah.
to wear gowns below the knee before midnight in the
Yep.
early days in this club. And she was in white, and she was doing a figurehead. She was just holding in a princess grip figurehead up the pole, glaring at this table, just smoldering at this table, with this top coming up to show like under boob and nipple. That's why I couldn't concentrate on the interview. I thought that was the most amazing thing. So I didn't know where to get the stripper gear from, but
Hmm.
I needed it for my working audition. So I just bought a white kind of silky nitrous that went down to my ankles, and then had a seamstress split it up above the hips, both sides. And it was kind of okay. It was kind of naff. I looked a bit like a ghost, but that's okay. It was really shapeless. It just went down because it was
Yeah.
down. But anyway, so my working audition, my time to go on the pole, and I didn't know then that when it was your pole rotor, you tied up your gown at the side to shake
Yes.
the string off. And I didn't know that at the time. So I just did some poling with this nitrous down to my ankles.
Amazing. What did you do? How did you know how to do anything?
I remember I attempted what I then found out was a fireman spin, and I think I remember it being okay-ish.
Wow.
I remember a few weeks after that, I tried to attempt something like a sun wheel, and kind of whatever. I didn't really try anything up. I couldn't get on or up because it took me a while to figure out that you could tie your bloody dress up. God, slow learner. I didn't have a pole at home at the time, but I stayed on the floor. And because I spent a lot of time actually on the floor as well, I thought that was great, even though where this pole was in the club, nobody did any floor work. So it was literally the floor where people walked everywhere. It wasn't a stage, it was right
Oh,
in the middle of the club. So
nice.
crawling around on the floor was a lot of looks like there's beer down there, love.
In white as
Get the
well.
fuck up. I know, I was clueless. But I stayed, well, because I spent pretty much my whole life just sexy dancing to like Motley Crue and LA Guns and stuff, and I love Madonna, I thought I really knew what sexy was.
Sure.
I probably didn't have a bad idea, but I didn't know what stripper style was. So God knows what I was doing around that pole. I have no idea, but it was in a ghosty white nitrous for a while. until some lovely stripper a couple of weeks in told me the shop to go to.
Oh, amazing.
But
How
yeah.
did you know how to do a fireman spin though? Had you seen someone else do it and then just copied?
No, I was probably just watching the dancers and not watching the tables for
Right.
years, actually.
I think the first spin that I learned on a pole in a strip club was a carousel spin, and that was because there were three girls at the club that I worked in that always did a carousel spin, and it took me ages to get it because it's a really difficult spin for a beginner, especially one with no upper body strength whatsoever. So I know that that was my first pole spin, but yeah, that was just from watching other people because obviously there were no resources really back then to inspire you other than the other beautiful women that were around you.
And they were massively inspiring. Massively inspiring. It was amazing.
Do you have like certain people in the club that you really vividly remember from your early days?
Yep. Hell yeah. Yeah. There was, I think, if I had a lot of peaceful, quiet time, I could remember them all, apart from the ones that just came and went really quickly in like a couple of weeks. But I don't want to name any names, but yeah, I remember the highest earner in Swansea. I remember the highest earner in Cardiff. I remember the big trickster who was gorgeous in Newport. I remember my friend who used to wear a watch and count minimum 7 dances per hour. So
Goals.
strict. I know, so strict. That's where my priority should have been. I remember the whole gang actually, and some of them are still dancing apparently.
Really?
So I still speak to some of my friends who I used to.
That's amazing. I have I can remember the people that were super important at the club when I first started, and one of them I have danced with recently, which is the most amazing thing. Yeah. Again, I'm not going to name names either, but this person to me was like, oh my gosh, when I first saw her dancing, I was like, that is serious goals. She was doing tricks. I think she did like a Superman at one point, and I was just like, that's amazing. And all of my inspirations were all girls that danced to rock and metal as well. So I feel like we've had super similar some experiences, which is really, really nice. And I think I did my audition to a Linkin Park song because there was someone dancing on the pole downstairs to a Linkin Park song. It was one of the girls that I was talking about. So my audition was to something along those lines anyway. So was there a lot of that kind of music in your club then? Or was it just you chose it?
I never had a pole audition. You had a pole audition specifically.
Yeah, so
I was never told to get on.
No?
No, they just wanted to see if I would lap.
Oh, really? So I didn't have a lap audition. I had a pole audition, and there was absolutely no talking to any managers beforehand either. Basically, I was left alone in the club for about half an hour, and a couple of girls came and kind of showed me a few bits on the pole upstairs because there was 2 levels to that club. But they showed me like a seat where this girl basically grabbed a hold of my legs and said, you can let go when you tell me it stops hurting. And then the rest of it was just kind of like move around, step, body roll, kind of, you know, the standard. And when I got to do my audition, I'd forgotten everything. I definitely didn't attempt to do a seat, like, no thank you. And I was just like, just like running around like the Energizer Bunny and taking my top off because that's what they said. They were like, when you get halfway through the song, take your top off. And as soon as I took it off, they were like, okay, that'll do. Because I think they just wanted to see that you'd do it.
Yeah. And
then after that, I stayed for the rest of the night. So but I did get lap danced by 2 girls afterwards, and I was just like, just like this. I was like, okay, this is my job now. It was definitely like a baptism of fire.
Yeah.
Having never experienced anything like that before. It was pretty amazing. So your audition, you didn't pole, you lap?
No, wasn't really a thing. It was one night sit down audition, then come back the next week working audition. I had a pole rota, but they didn't care if I was shit on it or not.
Right. Well, they're not though, are they? Even today, like going in the club, they always put the people on stage even if they don't know how to do anything. And I don't know, I suppose there's pros and cons to that because that's how we learn at the end of the day, and it's still very much, the clubs are still very old school. The ones that I've experienced recently anyway are still pretty old school in their whole, well, if you want to do the job, you've got to do the job.
Yeah.
Luckily, there are some clubs where girls will be like, oh, let me help you a little bit with that. And if you have the benefit of having more than one pole in the club, which I know can be quite rare, then, you know, there might be some nice people out there that are willing to show you something. But I know personally for me, I don't know how it was for you, back in the day, if I wanted to get an actual pole lesson from one of the girls that were really good on the pole, they would charge an absolute fortune, like hundreds, which was absolutely fair enough, because why would you want to share your skills with someone who's going to potentially compete with you
It
on the
was
pole in the club?
it was a lot kinder where I was. We had this thing, there was, I would say, less than the sixth of us,
Oh,
6%
really?
that was on us, that was on a night would come in early, get ready really early. So you had at least an hour downstairs on the pole before the doors opened.
Oh,
Nobody else was
okay.
really interested, but there was some of us, and we just used to jam and say, well, what about this? And when I do this, I'm like, oh, that's good. Like, you don't steal anybody else's move. That was a thing. Like, but we just used to jam. And I remember now, it was a bit of a thing. If somebody had the signature move, you don't do it.
Yeah.
That's like taking the signature song, you just don't do it. But it was fun to like help each other with like spins and stuff. And
Yeah. That's nice.
yeah, that happened in more than one club that I went at. So
Yeah. That's nice. I think some of the clubs that I worked in were a lot more competitive than that. I started in Brighton, so I don't know, there was a lot of girls.
yeah, so in one of the clubs, we had someone visit us from Birmingham and we had our ass kicked with her. She had the hustle. She was from Spearmint and she had the hustle. She had this pole dancing that we'd never seen before. Her tricks were flawless and smooth. And she was a poacher as well. And she had amazing hustle. And every time that she arrived, our hearts would sink. She would just wipe the floor over and over and over. So I've only danced in Wales.
Yeah.
So if you English people come down, yeah.
I've worked in quite a lot of different clubs in the UK, and it has definitely been moments, especially in London. Oh my goodness.
I
I
can
thought that
imagine.
I would literally die in London. Big credit to anyone who's dancing over there right now, or in any clubs that are massive, have loads of girls, or just are generally not to the lovely little quaint ones where they give you lots and lots of help and support.
Is it Deja Vu in Las Vegas that's 300 square foot and has 300 dancers on a night?
That's the big one.
Can you imagine the hustle?
Yeah. Oh my
You are
God.
you are not getting a dance. You are getting a dance.
Yeah. I mean, oh my,
Wow, fancy working there.
yeah. Ugh. It doesn't appeal to me in any way, shape, or form.
It's fascinating though, isn't it?
It is fascinating. I'd love to visit, but I don't think I have the stamina or
No.
the audacity or the bravery to have that kind of hustle. Very, very inspiring. I want to know, other than the girls that you worked in that you looked up to at the time, who else was kind of moving and grooving around at the time when you started that you can remember had a particular influence on you or in general in the pole industry?
Pole industry didn't exist when I started polling for years. It just started to exist. All of us dancers were on something called My Pole Forum way back when, before YouTube, and obviously before any social media. And that was like a forum for strippers and sex workers.
Do you
And
know who
then
started that?
a guy called Kimball.
Hmm.
Mm. And he sold metal fast poles as well, which would drill into the ceiling, 50 mil stainless steel. And that was my first pole. I think it was everybody's first pole back then. That was before X pole were invented as well.
Yeah.
So the pole industry kind of came from that. Well, some of us were there, like Robin was there, Deb Riley was there, Storm was there. I can't remember who else was there. I think Misty was there. And that was the start of the industry. So it was only the people I was working with that I was looking up to. And then, like years after that, we had Fornia Mondays DVD come out. We reviewed that on my Pole Forum. And then Pantera Blacksmith's Pole Tricks 101 came out. So, which makes me think, if there's comps and DVDs coming from comps in America, traveling, they must have been ahead of the game over there, obviously, because we weren't making DVDs of pole over here.
Right.
So it was, the industry probably started elsewhere. Well, obviously it did. It started in Canada first and Australia. UK's late to everything, aren't they? So, but no, it was the people I was working with and the people on my pole forum. And then we all started learning from Fornia's DVD and Pantera's DVD. And if there were other DVDs, I don't know about them. There probably was, but those are the only two I knew about. And I heard there was actually, no, I heard there was a couple of UK DVDs. Someone called Nikki made one. Can't remember her second name. It might have been a Pole Cats DVD, I think it was called, but I can't remember.
And what kind of things do you remember learning from those DVDs?
oh God, is what I couldn't learn from the DVDs. So Fournier's DVD went from fireman spin to chair spin to handspring.
As in, that was
That was the third thing. So
was that like a combo, or you learn
no,
this,
it was just a
then you learn this?
tutorial for fireman and then a tutorial for chair and then a tutorial for handspring. And of
Okay,
course, levels of pole hadn't been created then, so I didn't know why I couldn't do a handspring.
sure. I remember working so hard on my handspring. I think the first picture of me doing a handspring is like 2010, 2011, and I'm like this, like a banana, and I was like, yay, post it. When I did my instructor training, my first lot of instructor trainings anyway, I'm pretty sure the most advanced move was an Aisha.
Sure. Okay.
And, there was only like crazy gymnasts in other countries, like ex-Olympic people that were doing stuff that you were like, oh, that's not really pole. That they're just using pole as an extra bit of gymnastics apparatus. That won't catch on.
Yeah.
Don't need to worry about that kind of stuff because they're gymnasts. We'll be over here with our chair spin and our fan kick. Thank you very much. It went fireman spin, chair spin, handspring. Did she have anything else to offer?
I can't remember what is a lot on that DVD, but I can't remember what else was on there. Me and Robin used to laugh a lot because we learnt from that as well.
Did you get together and learn, you and Robin, or
We
you did
chatted
it
on
and posted it
MyPole for a
online?
while, and then whatever else there was to chat on, probably AOL and MSN back then for a while, and then more into when the pole industry started. I only actually met Robin face to face when her comp, Pole Divas, did a regional at my studio down here.
Okay.
Which was really cool because I heard about Pole Divas because it was hers. And then I thought, well, my studio's brand new. What can I do to make it exciting? I'll host a regional. It'd be awesome. So I hosted that regional, and I had a few students in beginner category. And then a couple of students said, well, what are you doing for your set? And I'm like, oh, I'm not in it. And they're like, why are you not in it? And I was like, I don't know. Actually, maybe I should go in it. So I went in it, and the only other person in pro was Robin. Otherwise, they wouldn't have
Oh,
won anything. It would have been
yeah.
me. So fair enough. Robin went in. It was just me and Robin head to head. It was the strangest thing. We've been chatting for ages, like, and then we competing together. But yeah, I won that. Woo.
Yeah.
Then I got through to the finals.
When we're talking about competitions, in the early days, the competitions had rules and restrictions, right? And like, we're not gonna say or go into whether that was right or wrong because there was obviously lots of different reasons for it, and possibly had it not been for how sanitized we were back then, we may not have been able to have what we have now. So there's absolutely nothing negative or horrible meant by anything that gets said.
I talk about it a lot and I make jokes about it, but I'm not mad about anything.
No,
I'm mad about anything. But I'm really lucky to be a part of it right at the beginning. And I know I shout bloomers a lot. I have to wear bloomers.
but it's true.
There was some comps that didn't allow shoes, but I remember that regional, I think you could go maximum 5 inches. Or was it 5 inches or 6? So I bought some 5s, and I did have 5 inch, and I made them chunky just to make sure my extra safe. So no stiletto, not getting discounted for my shoes. But,
And was that a safety thing? Was that a safety
no
restriction,
idea.
or was that a sexy restriction?
It might have been an insurance thing.
Oh,
I
okay.
have no idea. I don't know. I'm guessing. I don't know.
So let's tell people why we had to wear bloomers. What's the bloomers thing all about?
So, oh God, I got a feeling I don't want to speak for Robin because she knows the whole story. She was in the backstage of everything and the workings of this comp more than I was. It was more about the publicity of the comps because she had to find venues for them to go in, and these venues assumed that Robin was bringing in a ton of strippers.
Sure.
Of course, strippers were just like devil worshippers, so let's not have them near us. It's catching.
Yeah.
So she had to make sure that we had shorts on that covered our gluteal crease, just to make, because there's no other boundary by your butt. So at least that's a line that you can say, this is a bit of anatomy. Can you have your shorts shorter? And also the strap at the back of your top had to be thicker, because if it was thin and your hair was over it, apparently, and I believe this to be true, she wouldn't lie about this, and my God, it would still happen today. Newspapers would come in to cover the story, they would take a snap, and it would look like that person was topless.
Sure.
So those were the rules for outfits. Bloomers, I tell you.
And we had to be a more sanitized and a more censored version of what was going on in the clubs, because otherwise we wouldn't be allowed to go into venues and have these competitions and have these events and classes. And what about like your family or the people in your community? Did anyone there have anything to say about you teaching pole?
Oh God, I'm gonna land my mum in it now, but I don't care.
You don't have to be too personal, it's okay. You can glaze over if you want.
I count myself as one of those women, and I think my mum was also one of those women. So, you know, those women. The other women are not comfortable around because we're wild as fuck. And my mum, I only found out about 5-6 years ago. The whole time she thought what I was doing was illegal and she was fine with it.
So hang on, she thought it was illegal, but she was fine with it.
I know.
Okay, well that's
great,
that's nice.
It's not great, is it?
I don't know, is it? I don't know whether it is or not. I can't really tell. I
just
have
came up. She just said something and I was like, wait, what? And she repeated, I'm like, did you think what I was doing wasn't allowed? And she went, yes, you can't strip. There's like, stripping's not illegal, Mum.
But she was still supportive.
Oh yeah, she was one of those, if it was in my day, I would have done it, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure they're probably, anyway, we don't need to go into what she could have been getting up to.
She was also from around here, so nothing happens around here. She wouldn't have known.
What else can you remember about the kind of people that were around at the same time as you that maybe are still around now and things that they may have done ever since?
The very, very OG pole dancers that I remember from the UK, like I mentioned, Storm, Deb Riley, Misty, Robin, those were the OGs around me. Everybody else, every other name you could mention, I can guarantee they were later on. And I'm not even first gen, and neither are all of them. Mind you, Deb's really early.
Oh, see, you mentioned this the other day, this whole generation thing. I'd love to know what your personal classification of each of these generations are. So first generation, is there like an age, like a time frame? Are you thinking it's from 90 something to 2000 something, or like what's your baseline?
Because stripping has been going on a long, long time, when I talk about first gen, I just mean pole industry.
Pole industry in the UK?
Everywhere.
Everywhere. Okay.
So that would be the people who founded the very first studios. That would be Tammy, Alina, Bobby, Fournier, and anybody else that I don't know about. The first ones.
Yes.
Second gen were the ones who did it after them. I'm probably second or third. I think if I'd have got off my arse and not lived on stables, then maybe it would have been different. And everybody, and like Deb started before I did, I think. Yeah, you have to give first gen pole industry, pole dancer status to the ones who opened the very first studios ever.
Sure.
Oh, and there was someone called Jojo who did it in London for burlesque and some pole. And I think she was the first in the UK. I'm talking about generations of teachers and studio owners, because stripping's been going, you can't get first generation stripping. You'd have to go way back to, that's impossible. But yeah, first generation. So, which means that it's not about how long you've been polling.
Yeah.
I stopped counting after third gen. There's no point. We can't just keep going up to 16th gen, 17th gen.
Sure.
So it's no point counting after third.
So is that then what you would consider to be an OG, someone who was one of the first crew to open a studio or to be teaching in a studio? Yeah. In the UK in that time, or in the industry in that time?
Yeah, that's what I personally consider. I don't think you're an OG because you've been dancing or polling for longer than 10 years. Because someone could start now, this week, and then still be polling in 10 years. They're not OG. That's very new.
Yeah.
It's not.
I see what you mean.
It's when you started.
You're attaching it to the date that it was started in our history rather than the length of time you've been doing.
Yes.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. I want to know if you have any funny stories that you're allowed to share. Think carefully.
Yeah. Like the very first lap dance I got, my first 10 minutes of being on the floor, my working audition, I got my first lap dance. Woohoo. And I wore a bra, big mistake. I also wore a spiral bangle. So you can see where
Oh,
this is going.
yeah.
So that lap dance took 10 minutes because I couldn't get my bra off, and then I couldn't get my bra off my spiral tangle. So
That is amazing. So the person got extra basically. Did you get charged
yeah,
extra?
he was cool about it. I was cool about it. Nobody else really gave a shit. So it was fine.
Good.
It was the same club, and probably in the same month, I saw somebody else take their dress off and then kick it up on the behind them on one shoe and catch it.
That's
She was
amazing.
called Brooklyn. She was amazing. And I tried that and I missed it, and my white dress landed in a beer puddle.
Oh no. And you didn't really have any other backup outfits at the
Oh,
time.
so it was fantasy outfits after midnight. So I got to change into my fantasy outfit 2 hours early before anybody else, and I banged.
Yeah, there you go. Oh, I remember that as well, like having to wear a dress. And like these stripper dresses, honey, they're not dresses. They're bikinis with a little bit of
Something.
floof on the side or whatever. Floof, flange, little bit of that. I don't even have a word to describe that as that. Little bit of thing to whip around and then tie up anyway. I still have a whole bunch of my stripper dresses and they're like literally hanging on by a thread. They've got these really ugly, big like gemstones that are hanging and they rattle when you shake and they're just bits of fabric. We had a dressmaker that used to come to ours like once a month or once
Oh
every
yeah, we
two
had
months,
that. Yeah.
and they would basically just be selling four-way stretch lycra bikinis with flange with massive rhinestones just stuck to them.
So I've noticed now that, see, when I was dancing, you used to get fined for wearing underwear. You had to have a specific fantasy outfit, not just underwear. Now it's underwear.
Yeah, I remember
The
that.
times have changed.
They used to be like, so what have you come as today? And I would be like, stripper.
Yeah.
Come as a stripper. Okay, lingerie. I'm a stripper. There were some amazing fancy outfits at my club though. There was this one girl that had a proper full-on cosplay style Bo Peep. I can't even like begin to go into how wrong or right that is or isn't. We don't have time. And she had the cane and the like fucking bonnet and like, oh my god.
That's so
And as
cool.
you can imagine, she did make a killing.
Oh yeah, I can imagine that went really well. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's awesome. Actually, that's pretty cool.
It was cool, but a bit fucked up. But we'll glaze over that.
One of the highest earners in Swansea, her best outfit was schoolgirl, red tartan schoolgirl.
Of course. Oh my gosh,
Amazing.
how many schoolgirl outfits did you see come and go at that
But
club?
nurse always used to bank more than schoolgirl. Nurse was really popular, super popular. I would never do nurse, it didn't suit me. But my God, if you had nurse, wow, you were done.
And what about boots? I want to know about boots at your clubs. What were the rules on boots?
Have any rules on boots? I never had any boots. I only started buying boots when I was teaching, and I discovered Pleaser Extremes, which is still my firm favourites. But I never had boots in the club. But I did work with so many dancers that had thigh highs that they just used to throw their notes in, and then at the end of the night they'd undo the zip and let it fall out, and it'd be just like really soggy notes, like
Yeah.
ripped up, sweaty, soggy notes. I was like, okay, that's what you
Yeah.
like.
Pay your commission with those ones, and then you just
Oh, yeah, yeah.
that's all good. There was like a phase that my club at least went through where girls started wearing boots more often because obviously it gives you grip on the pole. So loads of girls started wearing boots, and the manager came in one day and like came into changing rooms and was like, "There's too many of you wearing boots. You all look like hookers. Some of you have to take them off." And then we had to like basically fight between us who was going to be still allowed to wear their boots and who wasn't. And there was this one girl who was incredible on the pole. She had like this real kind of Southern American style of just being. I don't know how to describe her. And she had these like really amazing They were pleasers, but they looked like cowboy boots, and they were just to here. They weren't like full length. And she would just smile at him sweetly, and she'd be like, "You don't mean me, do you?" And he'd be like, "No, I'm pretty sure those boots are painted on." And then they'd like run off together afterwards, and we'd all be like, "Whatever."
Absolutely.
So we had to take it in turns to be allowed to wear boots so that we could grip on the pole. But the noise, oh my god, the noise when someone tries to do a fireman spin or something really stupid in thigh highs on a 50 mil pole that doesn't spin. You said a little bit earlier that you competed in Pole Divas in the regional event. What else did you do? Was that the first one you did?
Yeah, that was my first one, and then I did Divas again. Got through in, they had a regional in Bristol, and me and Sarah Scott tied. We both won that regional and got through. Oh yeah, I won the All Wales. I got through. No, I was asked to be in the elite category for the very first pole theatre, and I did. I think it was one UK PPC when they were in the small venue before Telford. That's all I remember. That's all I remember. But I got a feeling I've missed some. But I think maybe I'm feeling I've missed some because I've judged some, and in my head it's all mixing up.
Did you compete before you judged?
Oh yeah, yeah. Can you judge now without competing? Is that how the industry has changed?
I did.
Did you really?
I
Oh,
judged, I started judging before I started competing, and having been a judge and obviously being a teacher and everything like that, if I want to enter a competition now, I have to go straight to the top, which is so unfair because
yeah,
even though I've
sure.
been doing pole for a million years, I'm not as good as everyone else, so I don't want to enter elite. I can't do fungies and shit like that.
It's a shame you didn't get in the beginning when the hardest thing was an Aisha.
Right? I mean, I feel like I did my journey kind of a little bit backwards, but I'm glad. I'm really grateful for everything because it put me where I am today. But I did get so much backlash. I used to get people literally trolling Facebook posts of announcements where people would announce me as a judge to say, "Oh, what has she done? What has she won? Why is she doing a workshop? Why is she doing a judging or guest performance or whatever?" And that was a massive contributor to my imposter syndrome, because I was like, because I got asked to. I want to know, when you competed in the early days, do you remember what kind of tricks you did in your competition routine and whether you prepared for them or whether you freestyled?
um, I just want to say, because I think this is really fascinating compared to where pole is now. Sally Ann Giles was famous for her handspring and also her death lay. But handspring was like at the time. And I remember that Bristol regional watching Sarah Scott warm up. I didn't have a clue who she was. And she did a Phoenix, and that was the first Phoenix I've ever seen. And I was like, oh, okay, I'm going home. Let's all go. But that was amazing. It was so cool. They're still up on YouTube. So all of my comp sets, most of them are badly filmed because like everything was badly filmed back then. They're on YouTube. There was a lot of dance and there was a lot of floor. I remember the UK PPC one. I had this bee in my bonnet about the whole stripper style fitness thing, and because it was a finals, and rather than do a routine that I think could place me in any way, I did this routine where it would start off really. This is really childish, by the way. I'm not proud. I am a little bit cringe about this. It starts off contemporary and then the music changes and I take my scrunchie out and I turn it into a stripper garter and I start stripper styling. It sounds cool. It is a little bit cringe when you watch it. But I think the thought was there, the heart was in the right place.
What made you want to do that kind of routine? What was going on at the time that made you want to bridge the gap between the whole contemporary fitness?
Yeah, so I'm finding it like the more people ask me about it nowadays, it's really hard to explain what things were like then. Because if you're polling now, or if you started polling in the last 6 years or 7, you just can't imagine what it was like. And it really is hard to explain if you weren't there how like sterilized pole was in the UK. I can't speak for any other country, but in the UK it was fitness, 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 fitness. Now the fitness pole that was happening then is also not like the Trixie pole that you see now. The Trixie pole that you see now is flipping epic, and it's gorgeous and it's unique and it's stylized for a change. The fitness pole that was happening back then was literally just an exercise modality. That's all it was. There was big boxer shorts happening. There was boxer boots happening. There was a phase where people were wearing boots that boxers would wear to try to get away from the whole shoe thing.
Yeah.
It was hideous, and it was everywhere. And that was the only bit of pole that was supported. That was the method of pole that had the backing from people with money behind it. The comps were more for that. If you did that, you'd get favored in the comps.
Absolutely.
That was the studios where people reckoned you'd get the most students if you did that, and you wouldn't get students if you did anything else. It was just very pervasive and extremely insulting. It's like somebody looked at what wonderfulness came from the club, in that the original strippers opened studios, and they weren't just teaching spins and tricks like an exercise thing. They were teaching women to walk. They were teaching women to walk around the pole. They were teaching them. It was like a confidence thing. And then it's like somebody saw that and said, hey, let's strip it of everything wonderful and turn it into literal crunches, fan kicks, spins to build your shoulders up. It was hideous. It's disgusting. It was like taking a gorgeous Black Forest gatto and turning it into an ice cube. While insulting the gatto.
Yeah, sure.
So that's what made me do that routine, really. It was just insulting. The whole thing was insulting. It wasn't as if some women looked at what was already happening and thinking, let's do something different. They said, let's do something different because that's gross. That was the nerve that they hit. And it was a woman against woman thing. And I've had that all my life since school. So I recognized it, and it set me off. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah, there was that whole not a stripper gate.
It happened before the not a stripper, because hashtags weren't a thing then. Social media was barely a thing. We'd only just had Facebook. So this was like the very early not a stripper. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, the reason
I'm not going to name names, but some of the people who were very high up in the industry used to say things like, not like those women,
right?
Those pole dancers, we don't do it like those women. What, the original ones?
Wow. They wouldn't even call it pole dance, would they? Pole dance. The word dance had to be taken away. It was pole fitness, pole fit, pole fit, pole fit, pole fit. You couldn't say dance, or definitely couldn't say strip or anything like that. It had to be pole fit, pole fitness. We're doing pole fitness class. We're not doing a pole dance class. As soon as you said the word dance, that insinuated that it was something else. Yeah. Well, that it was what it was. But I was definitely someone who experienced a lot of backlash from the community and from people if it wasn't pole fit. I remember having my flyers removed from a shopping centre because I was doing like a pole seat in lingerie, and they were like, no. They asked me to change my wording on it. Like this was the people that I was renting from. They said you can't advertise like that, and I was like, but I'm paying you rent. What do you want me to do? Like, how am I supposed to pay you the rent if you don't let me advertise my classes? And they were like, well, you can't wear this in your flyers. And I was like, okay. I wasn't wearing heels either. I was barefoot, but in lingerie that was covered as well. It wasn't like pussy-tastic or anything like that. It was just like it was a professional photo as well. It was a really nice photo, really nice makeup, everything like that. I personally didn't think it looked slutty, but they did. So they were like, no, you can't have that. And I was very much in the arena and in the place and with all the people that were very much fitness. They were doing pole in the gym. Everyone was a personal trainer. And also, back then, in order to get insurance properly and everything like that, you had to have a fitness qualification as well as a pole certification if you were going down the black and white route. So before I started teaching, well, I lie, maybe after lesson 2 of me teaching, I went and did my exercise to music, all 3 of my pole levels, like beginner, intermediate, advanced, which didn't really mean anything compared to these days, those 3 qualifications. And then after that, I did a gym qualification as well. So I was a fitness instructor that could do pole, otherwise I wasn't getting any insurance. So it wasn't just like what we all said and what other people said that created this monster, if you want to call it that. We were being pushed, literally. We weren't being given insurance to do what we were doing unless we did something with it that was also in the fitness industry. So we had to become fitness professionals. There was no way I was a fitness professional. I skipped every single PE lesson when I was at school. Do you know what I mean? I was not. I went to do my ETM and like my calf muscles, I could do anatomy, and my shins were on fire. Like calf muscles. I've only done my anatomy and physiology like 20 times by this point, literally talking about qualifications. I was no fitness professional, but I had to become a fitness professional in order to be able to do things properly.
I know. It's a shame, isn't it, that those who took charge and they decided it had to be a fitness route, and I'm not going to name names, you know who I'm talking about. The person who decided, the one who was in charge of all of our insurance, said it's either this or nothing. And it never gave anyone a chance to try anything different. It couldn't be dance. Why can't it be dance? And yes, I know that you need an even more difficult qualification for dance. It takes a hell of a lot longer. We didn't even have a choice, though. Nobody was allowed to say, yeah, can we try that? You know, it couldn't have even, why couldn't it get the insurance of alternative therapies?
Why couldn't we just have had the insurance doing pole dance? It's literally, it's a real thing. Like it exists and people want to do it. People have skill, want to teach it. People want to learn the skill, want to learn it. So we should probably insure this thing. It's a money-making scheme potentially for you. So why would you not just go, here you go, pay me some money, you have insurance?
Yeah.
They did it with skydiving and stuff like that. That must, surely pole dancing isn't anywhere near as scary or as crazy as skydiving. You can insure yourself to do things like that. So why do we have to be personal trainers so we can teach pole? It makes no sense. But luckily it's not that way anymore, is it? You don't have to have qualifications anymore.
No.
Wasted my money and my time.
Yeah, we all did.
Moving on from that, I would love to know what you feel like is your contribution to the industry. What have you given us?
Apparently, I was, for many studios, the first stripper cell workshops they had. So there was
Please tell me more about your workshops. I attended one of your workshops once and it absolutely changed my life. At Emily's. Yes.
Oh, yay, I remember that one. It's when my speaker messed up and you gave me crystals.
Yes.
You fixed my speaker.
Put that on there, that'll fix it.
Yeah, you fixed the whole speaker. Oh, that was epic. Yeah, that was, what did I do? I did Serpent Power and another one, but I can't remember. Yeah.
Tell me a bit about Serpent Power. Obviously, I know because I've been, and it changed my life as a dancer and as a teacher. It changed the way I hold space for people in that kind of movement. It's absolutely a game-changing event. Please tell me about it.
Serpent Power is pretty epic. I'm biased, but it's pretty epic. It's a sensual, it's got a long name, brace yourself. It's a sensual movement meditation method. Try saying that 3 times fast. But it takes stripper movement, places it into slightly, because I used to be massively into Ashtanga. I got halfway into series 2 and it messed with my hamstrings, so I stopped. But it takes a lot of rules from Ashtanga, but puts stripper movement in there, like the repetitiveness, but the easiness of the moves. All those things go together so you can lose yourself. The fact that it's not skill-based, like you can't be good or bad at Serpent Power, which is what I love about it most. It has the yoga studio rules that you don't stare at each other, that you're in your own practice and let everybody else get in their zone as well. But yeah, it's Serpent Power is a sensual movement meditation method. That's pretty much what it is. It's on the dark side because it sounds a bit Star Wars, but it's the opposite of fluffy. Like, you know, you get many sensual movement methods out there and they're all very floaty and kind, and this is for wilder women who like their movement very lascivious.
Yes.
So if you've tried sensual movement methods before and it's like, it's kind of there, but it's not what I want, try Serpent Power. This might be the edge that you need. You know, it's yeah.
is raw, there's real energy that's being created, there's a connection that you have with yourself that lets go of any ego and allows you to really like feel what you're doing. And it helped me so much to look at the way I practiced and the way I approached my pole, and it literally changed my life. It's absolutely amazing. So if any of you out there are watching, you should go and look that up. Book Jamie for that workshop, or go to where there is a workshop and experience it for real. It will change your life.
Yeah.
Definitely. How did you come up with it? Where did it come from?
Well, pretty much the entire time I was teaching, especially before, I think the last comp I ever did was 2014. So you know what comp practice is like. It's intense and it's stressful. And teaching is great, and I love teaching, but I found myself coming home and wanting to pole dance, and which baffled me, because I was like, well, if I've been pole dancing, if I've been teaching it all week, and if I've been competition training for a long time, why do I feel like I've not pole danced? So then I had to realize what I was doing when I got home. And it was literally, like the sequences that you did with pole in Serpent Power, and then the floor sequences, that's what I was doing at home. So I thought, well, if I like this, would anybody else like this? And because I used to freestyle it all the time, I thought, well, how do I then put it into, when you put things together, because you're a teacher, like, how do I put it together in a format that I can teach it to others while still giving them the freedom? I don't want to turn it into like a syllabus or anything. So it took a little while, but I just wanted to hand out an alternative way of polling than I was doing at the studio, but I was doing at home, and I didn't know anybody else was doing it either. So a lot more people are dancing nowadays than they were back when. They're still not doing anything like meditative wise, like repetitiveness.
Yeah.
It can completely get you out of yourself. But I was doing that for years and years and years, coming home and pole dancing, feeling like I'd not pole danced when I'd been on the pole all day and all night. And then it clicked, well, maybe somebody else would like this. And I thought maybe like 5 other people would like it. If I was lucky. I'm still surprised to this day when somebody tries it and they just have this mind-blown look on their face. It surprises me, but
take that credit.
It works.
It is awesome. It works, and a huge recommend. Absolutely huge recommend. What would you, if you died tomorrow, what would you want written on your gravestone in terms of pole industry?
I've thought of my gravestone so many times, but I've never related it to pole, so this is interesting. I don't know.
What do you feel like your stain on the industry is? What's your stank?
I think lots of people would describe me with definitely the word stain. Bloody go away. No. I think to a lot of people who were around, I was the very gobby, annoying one that wouldn't stop pushing for stripper style, even when people were sick of hearing it. And I'm glad I didn't stop. Glory Pearl was a fighter as well. She was doing it alongside me.
When you say you were fighting for stripper style, what do you mean? What were you doing?
As soon as social media was a thing, that was another platform that we could speak out about it. Unfortunately, too many times there was so many arguments happening. Just the stripper erasure thing. I call them dinosaur deniers, because obviously I've been around long enough now. I'm a pole dinosaur, and if you deny that people like me existed, became from the clubs, and then started teaching pole, you're a dinosaur denier. So, and the people that did it before me, like Bobby and Tammy and Alina and Fornia, Pantera, Reiko, if you deny that all that existed and that's how pole was invented, apart from the fact that it's insulting to all women everywhere, those arguments were happening so much. It was daily, all the time, because pole fitness was pushed everywhere. That's all you'd see. If you were lucky enough to find a pole studio, it would have been fitness one, and then that fitness instructor 9 times out of 10 would either be not talking about the other side of pole or slagging it off. So you had to have another side of it, and all the comps were really fitnessy, so anything that was big that the general public would see, had stripper erasure all over it. So
Yeah.
I just didn't want the roots of pole to vanish. I think that's what I was fighting for, because I did see it vanishing. I really did, and I wasn't the only one. There was so many times where I was convinced this is just going to be fitness forever. That's all pole is from now until I die. It's just going to be fitness. The way the industry is now, I never dreamed would ever happen. I didn't I like, you had this little bit of hope that maybe fitness and there'd be stripper style, it'd be 50-50 everywhere. Never thought it'd be where it is now. It's amazing now, isn't it?
Give me like a little bit of an example of a comparison of what we are able to do now that wasn't possible even, I don't know, let's say 8 to 10 years ago.
You weren't allowed to caress the pole when I was competing. You weren't even allowed to do a little finger trace. So there's an example for you compared to what we can do now. I mean, you can even get naked in PDSM. I am so envious. Not envious enough to start the circuit again, not that bad. But as soon as I found out that, oh my God, so envious. You weren't allowed to do that at all. You had to cover up, but anyway.
I would never push anyone to compete. I had a horrible experience competing, so I would never make anyone else do it. Support you if you want to do it, but not going to push you into it. Absolutely.
I'm entirely sure I ever liked competing when I was doing it. It was just that there were no shows then. Shows didn't exist. And the only stage that we had to perform on as polars, now because I stopped the clubs then, was this stage. So you just tried to get into a comp so you could have a stage.
Absolutely.
So, but now there's shows everywhere now, so which is excellent. So you don't have to compete if you don't want to.
Yeah.
Which is perfect. I'm not sure I ever liked comps. They're so stressful.
I hate competitions. Like I hate competing so much. And like whenever I'm judging a competition, I can feel everyone's like, I hate it. I really hate it. I really feel.
I never liked being judged in the first place.
Just no, that's the last thing you want. Yeah, exactly.
Then you put yourself in this position to be judged on purpose. That didn't sit well with me.
No, especially going from a dancing in the club background. I mean, you're kind of getting judged by the customers and by the other girls, I suppose, and there is that competitive element, but it's not the same. You're there and you've got this opportunity to like hypnotize and mesmerize, and it's not the same as like someone literally scribbling notes whilst looking at you. Like this is a completely different atmosphere, isn't it?
Yeah. I never had, I'm not saying every night was amazing at the club, obviously, but the camaraderie I felt with the women at the club, I've never felt anywhere before or since. And I know it's all competitive once the doors are open, and that's fine. But I've never had so much fun working with women before or since the club.
That's amazing. I'm so glad you had that experience. That's really beautiful to hear. That's so nice.
That's in all the clubs as well, so it was about 4.
I think my biggest thing that I've noticed, especially on social media, is that you can wear whatever you want these days, as little as you want these days, as high heels as you want, dance to whatever music you want, and just basically be super awesome and filthy and slutty and strippery and whatever other words you want to use to describe it. And I absolutely know that we're not out of the water. We're definitely still getting banned, shadow banned, taken down, reported, but not all the time. You know, that isn't something that we had back then. And definitely in the more public arenas, in the platforms, the stages that we had to dance on, we weren't able to transfer what we were doing at the club to the whole industry stages.
Yeah.
How do you feel about how that's changed?
That was really insulting, isn't it? That you can't do what you did at the club in the industry. And it came from the club. Oh, I'll never get over how insulting that is. But well, for example, in the olden days, you couldn't have a song that had swear words in it. You had to cover up. You couldn't caress the poles. Some comps didn't allow shoes
or clothing removal.
Yeah, that too, for real.
Even if you were removing and not being naked underneath.
Yeah. So it's not just pole caressing. You couldn't twerk. You couldn't do anything sensual. But yes, now I think where the industry is now, I think it's circled back round. I would like to think this is where it should have been 10 years ago or more. But I think we wasted time. And I'm not saying that tricksters and pole fitness tricksters shouldn't have happened. That would have happened anyway. Nobody was
Mm-hmm.
stopping that.
Absolutely.
But I think if the fitness wasn't so pushed so forcefully, business wise, and the comps and everything, we would have had this 10 years earlier, maybe more.
Yeah,
So
but
I'm happy
equally,
that it's here now. I just think we could have done this already.
yeah, absolutely. I think if we'd have known or been better equipped with how to fight for ourselves with the Instagrams, you know, the Facebooks, the competitions, the venues, if we knew how to articulate better, maybe, or if we had more support for each other, I guess, then maybe we could have attacked it differently and we could have achieved some of these things faster. But I think it's taken this long because we've all had individual fights. So all of us individually have been trying to convince one person here and convince one person there, and slowly, the ink has kind of like spread out and finally penetrated as many people's minds and belief systems as possible. And it's just taken that long for people to kind of change their opinion almost, or like alter their perception a little bit and be like, oh, actually, that's not so bad, or oh, maybe I shouldn't think that. It's taken us and all the people obviously that came way before me that long to fight the way you fought. It showed up on Instagram, showed up at competitions, showed up in all the different places that you showed up, convincing people and reminding people that this is what pole is. Pole is from here, pole is from the club, pole, we're doing this, we're actually alive doing this right now, and this is where it's coming from. I'm a teacher because I'm a stripper, you know, I'm here, recognize me. You guys did that, and like some other really amazing people did that, so that the people now can stroke the pole as much as they want and wear a teeny tiny little red polka dot bikini and pasties and nothing or whatever. It's because there's these amazing people that have literally been banging down doors and like stomping down on stages and ripping out their hairbands and wearing them as garters on stage in a pole competition and being gobby and being like those women. It's that that has made it possible for us, made it possible for all of us to be able to share more, to be able to like get up in each other's deliciousness more. And you know, people are way more supportive. There is still competition, but it's nowhere near in the same way as it was. I feel like people are a lot more loud at cheering each other on, you know. And I think let's amp that up a little bit. As you said, you're absolutely right. We've taken way too long to get to this stage.
Yeah.
So now that we have the possibility to share more and to educate ourselves more, let's do that. Let's go out and seek out people that we can hear from, and let's share each other's stuff. You know, like if you see someone posting something on the interweb, share it, show some other people that, like, comment, do something, because that's what we've got available to us. We can't literally necessarily always go up to each other and give a high five, and we don't have that many opportunities to be on stage all the time. And especially some of the people that have been in it for longer, like yourself, you said you don't want to compete anymore, so that's totally fair enough. The other ways that we can support and appreciate you is to jump on that social media, book your Serpent Power workshop and all the other beautiful things that you do. Drive down to, or up or left or right, so wherever it is that you are, so they can enjoy in your gloriousness, and just generally not be ignorant. Let's know, let's be aware of what has occurred, so that we can all just be enriched. We can all learn from this. We can all be better in some way or another. Is there anything, Jamie, you would like our younger in pole years dancers to know that you think is vital, or that you just think would be good for people in the industry to know?
The young pups, it must be really exciting to find a lifestyle choice, and pole is a lifestyle choice. I know for some it's a hobby, but if you're wrapping your entire life around it, dancing, posting, teaching, that's a lifestyle now. It must be really exciting to have a lifestyle choice that makes you so happy when the history of it is still around. Imagine being into it when the history of it is long gone and you'll never ever get to hear about it or meet the people who started it. Like the people who started it, most of them are still alive.
That
So it must be really exciting. Pole is still new. So actually saying that pole is really new actually, and the fact that we've got to where we are now this quickly, that's actually kind of cool. I know it had a really rocky, hideous start full of big shorts and boxer boots. But apart from that, it's damn beautiful now. Finally. Dancing and tricks. Everybody is dancing. It's almost as if it's pole dancing.
all of a sudden.
Who knew this whole time? Who knew that it was dancing? But yeah, you're living in a time that's really exciting. Pole is still new. The history is still alive. Get involved. You're welcome to it. You're welcome in it. You know, it's your history too. So whether you're like 18 years old and you just started this year, no matter what style you're into, the history is still happening, and you're welcome to be involved in it. You know, learn about it. And if you're teaching as well, you need to know where things started, especially if they're brand new, and in like the length of time that things like this have been happening, like martial arts or skateboarding or any other lifestyle choice that could be a hobby, but for most is a lifestyle. That's really kind of old compared to pole. Ours is really new. It's really exciting. So if you just started this week, no matter what style you're into, get involved. Like find out where things started from. Find out who created the first fundamental tricks like leg hangs and shoulder mounts and tammies and handsprings, like who started the first comps, who opened the first studios, why we sickle our feet if it's stripper style and why we don't sickle our feet if it's not. Like, does anybody know why? You need to know why you're teaching this stuff.
Yeah. If we do all of this stuff together, we can all be, as you said, part of history, part of making it even bigger, even better, even more accessible to people. And we can keep educating ourselves, learning more about it, learning more about like the sciencey stuff as well, you know, the things, the positive benefits that it can have on your body and your mind. There's just so much out there that's still to be explored. So let's do all of that together. Let's get our best people on it and let's learn some more, and let's do the best that we can.
Yeah, for real. I just thought, imagine if you just started skateboarding this year and somebody said something about Tony Hawk and you went, who's that?
Right?
Can you imagine?
Exactly.
It's not okay in skateboarding, it shouldn't be okay in pole.
Absolutely. Yeah, let's make sure that we know who these people are. So is there anything else you would like to add to this magnificentness?
Only that it crossed my mind a few minutes ago, how huge at the time the private Facebook group stripper style was, because you couldn't post a stripper style video of you polling without risk of losing your job. And now the stripper style Facebook group is redundant because we've got IG. And I know some people have private accounts, but you won't lose your job now for competing in a big comp where that footage is going to get around wearing next to nothing. But over 10 years ago, you had to post it on a private group in Facebook and hope that nobody ever... How times have changed. It's great, but how many people knew that that was what it was like back then? And people wonder, like, well, you say it was like strippers versus fitness. Like, what do you mean? Well, some of us had to hide and others didn't. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll never get over the irony of taking something from the club and turning it into something that you don't have to hide. But the people that were doing exactly the same thing as the origin version had to hide. It was so wrong. It was so wrong.
And the reason why people are less likely to lose a job these days is because there are people that have literally done the work to try and change people's opinions of it, so they don't see it as something that is lose your job worthy.
Yeah.
You know, and that didn't just happen because of some people posting stuff. It happened because of lots of really hard work and people literally having physical encounters with people, personal encounters with people, building relationships with people, legitimizing and changing opinions left, right, and centre, because the work was put in by these people. It didn't happen overnight. It definitely took a really long time, arguably too long, and it was the work of some people that worked really hard that made that happen. So, you know, you can post your slightly whole routine and not lose your job because you know, loads of people did some work beforehand. So that's the thing that I think is super important for people to know about and to appreciate and to respect. So I just want to extend a huge thank you to you, Jamie Taylor. You have been a huge inspiration to me. You have definitely had a dramatic influence in my life, in my pole life, in the way that I dance and the way that I teach. I think you're a magical human, and I'm so grateful that you allowed me to have this time with you. And thank you so much for sharing your experiences with us.
Oh, thank you for asking.
You're welcome. I'm excited for other juicy things to happen in the future as well. Jamie, where can we find you? Where can we find your stuff so we can support you?
Serpent Power is available on demand on Vimeo if you just want to get that for home use. Also, if you want the full package and the inside info on how it's all created and extras, pole tutorials, there's scarlettemple.com.
There you go. We will make sure that we put links to all of that there.
And Scarlet Show is back in 2024.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I am absolutely certain that we will talk again in the future, but for now, I'm going to end.